Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerd Dave, and today I'm joined by this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted, how you doing this fine and lovely evening, sir?
You sound so tired, man.
I am tired. I have had a very long weekend. Lots going on. Pretty much been, running the entire time. So I'm run down and looking forward to possibly some early shut eye tonight, but who knows?
Hang in there, my man. Hang in there.
Oh, I'm definitely here. You got me for the next hour to talk about factions, and then we'll see what happens thereafter.
As you just mentioned, we're gonna be talking about factions tonight, how to use them in your D&D game, maybe some other role-playing games. Um, you know, I can think of like one of the most memorable moments in gaming for me, or at least one of them, right, where factions were involved. James Introcaso was running his Planet of the Tarrasque game, and it's a high level game. You're all 20th level, and it starts off with you get this warning that there's this impending doom in the form of Tarrasque. They're coming, and you're giving the opportunity to um, marshal the forces of Waterdeep. And I don't like he wrote the adventure, and I don't know if the adventure does it the same way or if it's something that he does when he runs the game. But like he gave everyone a chance to kind of rally, a different faction of the city to try and get them behind them in order to thwart the invaders and try and save the city, which was a lot of fun. I don't remember all the factions that everyone tried to do. All I know is like there's got to be a Were Rats guild in Waterdeep, so I want to get these furry boys on our side.
Sure.
But things like that can add a lot of fun. There's a great opportunity for role playing and exploring a campaign world. It's a great way to give information to the players without just info dumping on them and monologuing as the GM. They can get it in a more back and forth kind of way where they're discussing with NPCs, especially if they're encountering new factions for the first time in your game, so that your players might have questions, and then the NPCs can answer them, and then they're like more involved, so it feels more fluid, more natural, and not like just the DM vomiting on them for like a half hour straight. Which after a while, my eyes just kind of glaze over.
I definitely understand that one. And factions are something that are very, very present in Planescape and the Planescape setting. And it's something that you can, very easily be like, all right, well, what kind of factions does my world have? And as you start building factions, it's like, okay, you've got a name, you've got some kind of symbol, you've got some kind of structure that's set up with leadership and members. And as you begin building out all of these things, you realize, all right, well, now I've got this character and this subplot here, and this character and this subplot here. And they may never be anything that your party actually attaches on or looks into, but as you create these components of your world and your game, you have things that are making it more alive. And regardless of whether you're dealing with rival factions or friendly factions, having something that your players can have a choice of, oh, do I want to try and join this? Like, I remember when I was playing the game Planescape Torment. Yeah, it's a video game, but it's based off of D&D. uh you know Part of the game was choosing what faction do you want to belong to, which would dictate what kind of quests you would have access to, what NPCs would wind up becoming friendly or adversarial if you chose the wrong one. Like, so you had all of these things. And, once you feel like, all right, beyond belonging with the adventuring party, well, now I belong to this faction. So you've got people that you can reach out to. You've got, more than just, oh, I need a roof over my head. Like, I need a locked door to be able to hide behind. All right, man, we got you. You're one of us now. Like, so there's a lot of fun that can be done, with factions, regardless of what RPG you're playing.
So, did you have a favorite faction?
It was a long time ago that I played Torment, so I don't remember which one I joined, and I have not
Uh-huh.
dove deeply enough in the books to jog my memory, if you will.
So when we're talking about factions and for GMs or players, what comes to your mind? What do you consider a faction?
I mean, if a faction is essentially an organization, it's something that's not allied with a government by, any part of it. It's not like, oh, well, I'm, part of the city watch or whatever. It's not part of a religion. It's something else. If you look at um like the critical role games, there is the Slayer's Take, and there are like mercenaries that go out and do jobs and this and that. That's a faction. It's an organization outside of government, outside of religion, but they're a group. um so technically you could be like, well, if you want to become widely recognized as an adventuring party, well then sure, maybe you're a faction. But generally they're a lot more powerful than that. They're connected, to greater elements, but they're separate from, you know, those religious and governmental agencies.
So I think you can have factions, even in those government agencies and within those religious organizations. So that, like, I think, and I would say you could. I guess I have a different take on factions.
Take, sure.
It could be as small as the the orphans that live on the street that have banded together, uh, for safety and survival, to as large as a planar spanning faction, that whatever their objective or goal is, it doesn't matter, just that it's massive. So I think there can be a large spectrum for these factions, and they can serve different roles at different points in a campaign and a game. And it's going to be, your interactions will be very different depending on the games you run. Like, even adventures leagues have factions built into them that you can be a part of when you play it. Especially, it's all Forgotten Realms based, so you have the Harpers and the Zentrum, and they're more like the organizations I think that you're talking about.
Mhm.
But I feel like they're boundless and limitless in what you can do with them in your game, and they're invaluable resources for the players to interact with, for social encounters, for exploration.
I mean, they really can fulfill every pillar of the game, because while yes, they're going to directly be able to provide the social pillar with conversation, they can provide lore, and as you would call it, the data dump, and get into the exploration pillar. But be it through straight up combat with them, or combat on the quests that they're sending you on, they're very much connected to um the combat pillar as well.
and you know you can you can also, like you said, use these as quest givers as fun. Also, like, if you do training in your games and players have to do some kind of training in order to level up, then you could use organizations and factions like that as a place to go back to. Their home base might be part of a faction where, instead of having, they have their own space, maybe it's a shared space, and if they're working for a particular faction, that they go back there, they get their training. It's a barracks. It's a place where they could sell their goods that they've acquired while adventuring. So I think there's like tons of options. Um,
I mean, it can literally be just the quest that, the campaign itself is like, all right, you know session 0, you guys are going to pick a faction. You now belong to this group. You guys, session 1 or part of session 0 is you guys narrate, what did you do to get a part of this thing? And then thereafter, it's the catalyst. If you look at the Unearthed Arcana and the bastions that they were talking about, your bastion could, as you said, be a part, a sliver of what the faction stronghold is, and you get a space in there to do with as you want. But it's, utterly yours so long as you remain within good standing within the faction. And factions can have their own sets of rules and codes. Oh, your faction could be the Thieves Guild, and you could play an all thieves game, or a all, you know shall we say, shady empires kind of game, where everybody has access to, enough shady skills or class abilities to go and do, those kinds of missions, be it, straight up hits, or, you know break in and steal stuff, or kidnapping, whatever it is that, you know the game could possibly go in the direction of. That's what you do. You're gonna have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and it's just a way to enrich the experience with the players, and it may be something they're into. It may not be. It may be something that you acquire in your campaign. Like, you could build your campaign around that. Like, Planescape is a great example of you know a campaign setting where the factions have a huge role in it, but it might be smaller than that. Let's see, Dwarf Burger Swampbeard says guild house. Exactly. Like, you may have a single guild house, or you may have multiple guilds and guild houses, right? And it could be the Assassins Guild, it could be the Thieves Guild, it could be the Mages Guild, but it could be mundane stuff like the Cartwright and the Smith Guild, right? And all these different ones, and they all wield different power in the game. Some of it may be purely political. Some of it may be based on wealth and influence. Others might actually be just raw power, because they're mages, or whatever works for your world. And the players could even belong to different factions. Nothing says they don't have to even belong to the same one.
That is entirely true. And that comes with, some fun games to be able to play around, of what happens when, organizations are on opposing sides of a situation. It's like, all right, we come to a head, and you guys are thrust into the middle of it, and some of you over here and some of you over here. What do you choose to do? Like, it can be a big to do.
What would you say would be your factions that you think, like, they kind of have to be in your games?
So to really, kind of break those things down, like, I like to have, evil organizations that are, willing to, work together, well, at least until they double cross somebody. But, be it rival adventuring parties, be it, um be a council of evil wizards. There's lots of different things that you can do, but it really depends upon, like, what the premise of my game that I'm looking to run. And since I've gotten into 5e, like, I've tried to, like, change it up, each time, and run something very different than what the other ones have been. um but house agents, if you have noble houses that want to be trying to do something, and build up their own clout in society, I think those can be fun. If you go into more of a Game of Thrones style houses, like, they could be things that are competing for either favor with the crown or the crown itself. uh, uh, I know we have a basically, like, unexplored, like, cityscape that's, like, at the hub of a section of our world that we dabbled in a couple of games, but it's only been a very rough paint job around what the city is. So I've begun kind of putting some work into, the city of Dralic, and I've taken some notes from Game of Thrones to make, actually, the 6 letters that make up the word Dralic actually are the first letters of 6 different houses, that all have some kind of distant lineage claim to the throne, and only one of those families can sit on the throne. And you have the political aspects of trying to vie for power and what have you. And with each generation, when whoever sits on the throne, however it's determined, because I haven't made it that far, um,
Yeah.
I've got the building blocks of like, all right, well, how do you rearrange the deck to determine who's on top?
Well, and well, that could also be a shifting thing, and it's kind of nice to have the on top be determined by the players in instances, right, where you let
Oh,
them,
absolutely.
their actions in the game dictate where things go, either through their action or inaction.
And that's like, I know this is like only tangentially connected to factions, but that is a game that I've never really gone heavy into a political game. And part of it is kind of the fear of having so many moving parts and puppet strings and what have you, um, that I feel it takes a lot more prep work than what I'm used to doing. So that's why I've kind of slowly been, while I haven't kept up with it, I was bouncing around our campaign world for Dungeon 23, and I was just working wherever the mood struck me for, quite some time. And for a week or so, I was pouring work each day into, Dralic, and making out these families and giving them things. Um, before the wind took me in another direction. But it's like, all right, well, if I were to ever do a political game, it would have to be based out of Dralic and these families, and I would very much want to be like the heart of the campaign is figuring out when the dust settles, who's on top, who's in the throne, and the players would, you know be ultimately be the ones figuring that out through whatever it is that they did.
So I think like Menza Baranza is another great place to look at how factions can interact with each other, especially if you wanted like a much
So
darker bent on it.
yes. And if you're not familiar with Menzoberranzan, it's the Drow city in the Forgotten Realms. It's the birthplace of Dritz Duerden. Um, you know, the most famous Drow in the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah.
Certainly you've heard of him. Uh, but the book series that is based out of, that city, or whatnot, it is well worth the read. Those books are awesome. It's a Homeland, Exile, and Sojourn. um I don't remember what exactly the name of that trilogy is called because it's been decades. But well worth the read.
Well, yeah,
And
Ari
and they
Salvatore does some amazing world building in that series. Like, I think that is one of the best parts of it.
indeed. uh and the characters and the city feel real because there's enough established, you know through just what Dritz encounters, to be able to really feel like, all right, you know this is just a place that's being described. It exists, it's there, even though we all know, like, it's the Forgotten Realms, it's a made up place. But everything just seems like you could just step in and check it out. And the way the houses of Menzoberranzan and fight against each other, like, they're cruel and evil and ruthless, but there's a code with it. And like, all right, if a
Ish.
rival if a house attacks a house and you don't just completely obliterate them, you get in trouble. And like, it could mean the destruction of your house. And instead of you climbing the ladder, you can get wiped out. So like, as cruel and ruthless as it is, they still operate off of this structure and this code. And like, you get to see some of that happening you know throughout these stories that are based out of it. So yeah, good stuff.
So, in your travels in drug, what kind of organizations were you working on, or was it just the houses?
So I worked on the houses within that. I have been working on factions and organizations within like the core of Swampgate, which is where the kids campaign that I'm running is based out of. And actually, if you can spare a moment, I will pull up my campaign notes and pull up some stuff. Um, Drop down to here. So I've got a thieves guild. Actually, the organizations I've been built up within here have all kind of really been, well, they're all thieves guild because of, oh, it happened to be based off of some things that the players had done. But I've got Hell's Knives that are based out of the Metal Quarter. It's a circular city that is divided into quarters, and then each quarter is in districts that are broken down therein. Um, and it's got who the leader is, a description of them, what the goals of the organization are. Um, you know, if you join this faction, this organization, you are magically tattooed, with the guild symbol, which only appears, under certain circumstances. Uh, the characters actually had interacted with the Dark Skulls, that are based out of the Wood District, and they are looking to try and uh, interact with the more natural magic that was here before the the city was built, and they're trying to like dig through all of the tech, if you will, because we know that Swampgate was kind of founded on the Vargarian spaceship that exploded here. And then the Night Dogs are based out of the Stone Quarter, and you know they're looking to do a little bit more on the lower end of things. They're more like a little bit more than street gang, if you will. So it's I don't want to give too much because off camera there's some prying ears, but
Mm.
it's some
Yes, banishment.
fun stuff.
Yes,
I
yes, banishment. Extended out to an hour.
So it's a lot of fun, but beyond the thieves guilds, I've got information on who the council is that kind of rules this place. A couple of adventuring parties that have kind of been put together that, should I need quests fulfilled that the parties decide that they're not going to go do, these guys can possibly step in and maybe succeed on it or maybe not. um because I like to have other adventuring parties that are out there, because regardless of what the players decide to do, the rest of the world still needs to be moving forward. I've run games where it's it's a stagnant situation, like a video game. You walk past the garlic farmer and they're gonna say the exact same phrase, that they always do. And I don't want that. If I put out a quest and the party isn't interested, well, then maybe somebody else is. Well, then maybe the party needs to go rescue the people who failed to do the quest, or maybe the quest gets done and the party loses out on whatever that reward would have been. And then you can kind of like, if it makes sense for the story, kind of showcase what that is. And we had some fun times with that when you and I were running games out of Griffin Gaff, because there were story elements that I feel, and I don't remember specifics, but like that I would put something out there and it would wind up affecting your game or vice versa. And I really enjoyed how these story elements could kind of bounce back and forth when you've got two GMs running out of the same city. Um, and I thought that was kind of cool. And you could have, if you have a rotating group that does something like that, then you could certainly do those kind of things with factions where, maybe you really do have some kind of system in place that factions earn, you know, clout or, fame or whatever terminology you want to use. And, maybe there's not so much a leaderboard, but, when new people come to town, whoever is on top, whoever has the most clout, they're the ones that people talking about. So as quests kind of come up, well, whoever's on top, well, they're the ones that are getting the jobs done. So that's who I should go talk to. And if you join a faction that's not doing well, well, that maybe you're losing out on these jobs until you start, overperforming and getting these things done. Or maybe you do some underhanded stuff and try to, like, you know knock the guys off the top by doing the quest that you shadily found out what it was, and see if maybe you can get the reward for it, even though you weren't the ones hired for it, and put your guild up on top of the pedestal for doing all of this shady stuff.
Shady stuff, you say. So in the current game that I'm running, actually I just ran it yesterday, Under the Dome, there is tons of factions, and we've kind of like touched on them lightly. Like, kind of, you guys have gone in and out depending on where the story is going and what your particular goals are at the time. But like, it opens up with a street race, and it's almost like the wacky racers from what was that, the Hanna-Barbera
Oh,
cartoon.
jeez.
It kind of makes me think of that, where you guys all had teams. Like, you guys were one team, so they're all like motorcycle clubs or gangs essentially.
Yep.
Some of them a little more outlaw than the others. But like, each one of them, they're small, but they're their own faction. We introduced gladiator schools, and each gladiator school is its own faction. And there's a couple religions that aren't really, they're more sciencey than religion based in some ways.
Apex Humanus, and what was the the Vargarian one?
So you have the Flesh Warpers. Yeah, the Flesh Warpers is the one that you're kind of into. And
But is Apex Humanus like the cult that goes further with that?
yeah, Apex Humanus, the way of the flesh, are the ones that believe in, like, basically altering our biology, flesh warping, grafting, whatever they can do to make themselves what they consider to be better, right? And then there's another faction that they're kind of like remnants of our Vargarian race, in the sense that, like, they've discovered some of their technologies and have started adopting them, and they believe in changing their bodies using construct parts or mechanical parts or clockwork parts.
If you saw the book of Boba Fett, there was like a gang that very much fit that aspect. They had, like, mechanical arms and eyes and things, and very much in a, like, you didn't really see that in Star Wars in anything other than the book of Boba Fett. But I feel like those guys captured the spirit of this organization the best.
Yeah, but it's got to be there to some extent, right? Because, like,
Sure.
look at Darth Vader, right? Look at Luke
Yep.
Skywalker, even, and there are definitely others, right? And they really explored that in the book of Boba Fett. So we definitely kind of leaned into that as well with some of the factions that we've created, some of the things we've created, and but also, like, in the same sense, like, the are kind of like, I don't know, our construct worshiping faction, like, they're based off of the Vargarians, and the Vargarians are based off of the Borg from Star Trek, essentially, only
Yes.
through using arcane means. And yes, I shamelessly stole right from Star Trek and continue to do such. If there are cool ideas you can port into your D&D games, you definitely should do that.
And like we have said countless times, steal shamelessly, for your home games, because you know how many unique ideas are really out there, and if you've got something that you can take a twist and a bend from some other idea, that's great. Do it. Make something that's fun, but make something that you know is that twist, and add something that's going to be yours. Like I wouldn't ever want you to be like use the Borg,
Yeah.
because the Borg's out there, and while conceptually a lot of what the Vargarians are come from the Borg, there is more than enough to really turn it into its own creation, because it's inspired by, oh, you've got essentially a cybernetic individual, that's looking to dominate others and make them part of you. Okay. You know, that's the Borg, at its core. Did Dave have a giant cube spaceship, come in and attack? No, he did something else. He
It was completely different. It
added
was what is that shape called? It's basically a D8.
drawing a blank at the moment. And I only remember half of it. I only remember the pyramid. Um, you know, but the creatures came in, and along with it, I mean, we've got a whole Vargarian aspect, Vargarian collective over on the website. It's a um, really great product to throw into your games if you want to take that kind of twist and change the scope of your game by having this utterly terrifying threat. We
Octahedral.
have a number of our octahedral.
Yes.
Okay. We have a number of Vargarian items in our Mage Forge, card deck that's fun to be able to play with. And then I've taken, and twisted some of those items even further. The Warforged in, my kid's game right now, he has got a mechanical scorpion tail that was essentially looted off one of the monsters that they killed in the in the swamp, because the swamp has been infested with this Vargarian technology.
Yeah.
So it's a bit crazy.
So we're at the halfway mark. So that's the point where we harass you guys with our sponsors and anything we're peddling at the time. Which in this case,
Indeed. So you start first, because I got to grab something.
okay, you grab something. So as you can see, scrolling across the screen is we have the Zoo Mafia Kickstarter going on right now. We're in the final days, and it's going to be close, but we think we can still get there. So please go check that out. Back if you're into it. You can check out the quick start rules for free. If you love it, back it. If you hate it, well, do us a favor and just share it out anyway. Maybe one of your friends will like it. Also, Easy Roller Dice, they've been with us for a long time. They're a channel sponsor, and they sponsor all of our live stuff. There is a one-time promo code down in the description so that you can go click on that to check out all the cool dice they have over there and score a sweet 25% discount.
But it's also the first Sunday of the month that we're, actually doing this thing. We took last week off for PAX Unplugged. Pardon me. We took last week off for PAX Unplugged. Dave and I had a grand time running around the convention hall and doing all the fun things. We met a bunch of we met a whole bunch of amazing people. We ran some Zoo Mafia games and had a grand old time. But with it being the first Sunday that we're actually doing this stream, it's time to talk about our monthly giveaway and our monthly fan game that we do. As always, you get a free entry for joining our Patreon, and you get another one for doing our mailing list. I combine those all together, do some mumbo jumbo and pull out, all of the names. So for this month, we're going to be putting together a heavy bundle. So I've got a copy of Planescape Gateway to the Multiverse. This is 3 books in a slipcover with a GM screen, as well as the Book of Many Things. This is one of my, favorite things that fifth edition has put out. So the lucky winner of that is going to be Holly Quinn. So I'm going to drop an email out to you in the next couple of days, and we can hopefully get that sent out to you. This month it is yours truly. It is me who gets to run the fan game, and the 10 random names that have been selected from the list is Brendan Lancaster, Josh Briggs, Keith, no last name, Erica Gibson, Erin Knowles, Cole Pruitt, Robin Johnson, Skylar Simpson, Leah Delarada, and Veronic Seed, or Seidel. I don't know how that's pronounced. If I best mispronounced your name, it is me just not knowing how to speak properly, and not as meant to any kind of slight on yourself. But there you go. I have to look at my crazy calendar because it's December, and December is always a rough one for me to trying to arrange things. But I'll figure it out, and I'll get that email out to you guys in the near future as well.
Hey, I recognize one of those names on that list for sure.
Who do you recognize?
It's one of our artists. It's our artist. He's done the cover for Zumafi. He's done the cover. He's done a bunch of Mage Forge magic items.
That's okay. Well, that's crazy
because that's his name.
Right.
So, I mean, it could be a different one.
It could very well be, because the email address that I had here, I didn't recognize it. Well, maybe it is.
Well, that's funny.
Well, I mean, that's how it works. I mean, if you sign up for the list, then it's there. But look at that. I know a handful of Brendans, so I didn't even think about it. Oh well.
So
that's what it is.
Seraph Sand just saying love the ramen hoodie. And thank you for the ICRPG recognition. Played my first game today. It's a great game. Brandon is a strange cat, but he puts out some amazing games. I love Brandon, and the only thing I love them more than Brandon is Brandon's friendship with Professor Dungeon Master, because they could not be two different people. And I just feel like Steve Irwin observing something happen in nature that rarely happens, and it's amazing.
Thank you for the the nod on the hoodie. I don't know why so many people love this hoodie. I get comments on it all over the place
because people love ramen noodles, and also when you're poor, you can get a lot of ramen noodles for a little bit of money, and you cannot starve to death. So that is an amazing thing.
So I mean, whatever. So thank you for that. ICRPG is a really great game. I really enjoyed the one shot that I got to play in back in April. I look forward to getting some more gaming in with it. But even if you're not interested in the rule set, the book is worth just the roll tables that are in there, because there are a lot of them.
Yeah, there's quite a few games that are like that, where it's like you may not even care about the game, but there's so many cool roll charts that it almost makes the book worth it, even if you're not gonna if you're never gonna play that game. There's quite a few like that. So we had mentioned, Ted had mentioned that we were at PAX Unplugged. So I guess we'll just take a little side quest from Factions for a moment, because we haven't really talked about it since we got back, and it already feels like it was so long ago, even though it was just last weekend.
Last week.
Yeah. You mentioned you had run some Zoo Mafia.
I did. So I actually ran into the board game captain from YouTube. He actually, I think he's from Chicago, but he's originally from this area, or at least friends with somebody that's, that's living in this area. And, we were happened to be, waiting at the train station at the same time, and we got into a conversation. And I recognized his media badge, he recognized my media badge, so we got to talking. We, as you do, I start mentioning Zoo Mafia, and these guys were very much interested in what I had to say. So I'm like, look, I don't know what your day is looking like, but if we can get more players, I'll run a game, because we were prepared to run games. I had my my typical gaming bag with me, and I had a folder with character sheets and dice and pencils and everything I needed to do. So we grabbed one more person, and pretty much as soon as we got over to the hall, we grabbed a space in the the free play area, and we ran a shortened game. It was like an hour and a half of character creation and play. So like I did the runaway rum, and I basically brought them right up into uh like Renee crashing into the speakeasy, and kind of left it on this cliffhanger of like, well, what would you do next? Um, but they had an absolute blast with it. And board game captain says that that it was definitely gonna get some talk in his post PAX review. So I was happy to see that happen.
Did you do any other cool stuff while you were at PAX?
So I just was, out and about. I saw some cool costumes. I met, a number of Nerdarchy fans. In fact, there was some sneaky posts by Whiz Kids that were, put up of like, hey, come to our tree at, this time. We're gonna do, a giveaway to, celebrate the winter holidays. And I happened to be just walking by, and this dude kind of like reached out and started talking to me. And after we were like standing there talking for a few minutes, he's like, oh, are you here for the the Wiz Kids thing too? And I'm like, no, do tell. So like he grabbed me because I was Nerdarchy, and then I wound up getting some imp minis out of it.
Nice. You never have too many imp minis in your life. So
No.
I also ran a Zoo Mafia game, but I ran it for a bunch of patrons for Unmade Gaming. He did a
Cool.
Sunday night gravy where he cooked like some, homemade everything. Got all the ingredients and made it, which was really good. And then we played Zoo Mafia after that, and at least half of them had already backed the Kickstarter. So that was
Awesome.
pretty cool to be able to play with them. And I think I had 7 players. It was the most chaotic game of Zoo Mafia I have ever run. And in some regards, it did make me appreciate the turn order of D&D style games a bit, because when you have 7 people and you're trying to herd all at once, that was interesting. But we had a lot of fun, and they ended up uh, procuring all the carrots for Bunny Malone, because they're like,
Nice.
we want to work for the new boss. So I'm like, all right, well, we don't have that die yet, so we're gonna have to improvise. But that being said, we still had a pretty good time with it, or we had a really good time with it. There were a great bunch of players. I got to play Hero Quest, which I haven't played in like 30 years. Me, you, and my wife, your sister, were sitting there, and one of the game barkers are like, "We need one more player for Hero Quest." What? I would play that. So I go over, I sit down, I start playing, and then a little while later, Ted walks over and he's like, and looks down, and goes, "Figures you would be playing the dwarf." And literally, it was just the seat that was open, but yeah, I would be playing the dwarf. Also, in that particular scenario, the dwarf special powers were useless, because like they have the ability to find secret doors and traps and stuff.
And there
And
were no secret doors or traps on that mission.
yeah, right from the get go, they're like, "We're not doing this." Thanks for making my special ability useless, Mister Zoltan guy or Zoltar, whatever they call their their game master type person that runs it. And then I also got to play a game of Deathbringer, which
Okay.
is Professor Dungeon Master Dungeon Craft stripped down version of 5e basically. It's like if you took 5e and just ripped it down to an OSR, but it wasn't just Deathbringer. It was it was his adventure Macbeth, which he had done with quest givers, I believe, had done for quest givers, and he literally converted the Macbeth play into an adventure. You play as one of the characters from Macbeth, and the story arc spans a full year, just like the play does. And it culminates with you having to fight Macbeth, and two of the characters are related. So I was playing a character, and his daughter is one of the other characters. And in the final battle, she crit fumbled an attack on Macbeth, and it hit me instead, and I had 1 hit point left, and took me out of the
Oh,
game. It was fantastic.
nice. So I like hearing, the demo kind of stuff. I have a friend who's, very friendly with some of the board game companies. Every year he basically just demos games for them. So I spent some time at that table, and I'm a bad friend because I don't
Uh,
remember what the name of the company was. I want to
it
say it was
was
like
like
Thunderworks
Thunderwave.
Games. I want to say it was like Thunderworks. I
I
don't
think that's
remember.
it. Thunderwave's a
Um,
spell in 5e.
uh, but I got to play a game that is essentially uh a goblin card game that the premise is goblins were kind of all locked up in prison, and they find a deck of cards and they use that to make this game. And you know there are so many layers of strategy to trying to maneuver that I I enjoyed playing the game, but there was too much nuance for me to grab it and go. Um, and their other game was like Dawn of Ulas or something along those lines, where you are essentially like a forgotten god, a fallen god, something along those lines. And uh, it's a game of strategy to try and manipulate the board so that when all is said and done, you have got the most favor, the most power in the world. So that I guess maybe you can, you know, be better than all of the other gods that aren't really being worshipped anymore. Uh, but you have to manipulate the factions tying into this within the world, and there's a knockoff of mind flayers, there's goblins, there's dwarves, um and there's like a couple other races that I feel like they just like, oh well, we're gonna make these up. uh but they all have their unique racial powers, and they're building up a power base. But if it gets too close to somebody else's power base, you can have them fight, and the other faction can be wiped off the planet or wiped off of the map until they regroup. But that's going to destroy all of the power that faction has. And if you were building up that guys to get to the end game, you just basically lost a whole bunch of power. And I was I was rushing because I had some good maneuvers for this game, and I didn't expect the other player to be like, oh well, I'm gonna put the two most powerful factions together and make them fight. I just didn't see that play. I was just trying to get them both to the end game,
Uh-huh.
and then I was just gonna win. And it utterly destroyed me. And then it was like, all right, now I got to play for 5 more minutes, just to let this guy win. it was it was bad, and
So
I
what I'm
didn't see
hearing is
that
you
play
you
happening.
you, you got outplayed.
I got outplayed. Yeah, I mean, I had fun. The games, are a joy. But sometimes the strategies, are, don't make it out. And it, I think it's possible that the other guy had played this one before, because like he sat, he came to the table to like, I want to play this one, and I went through the whole demo shtick to learn whatever, but I wasn't really paying attention to whether he was looking at any of that stuff. So I was like, I don't know, whatever. Could just be me sucking. It could be he was better. But
Yeah,
regardless,
yeah.
it was a fun game and I had a blast with it.
What is the tabletop version of a pool shark? That's what this guy
What was that?
was. I said, what is the
Oh,
tabletop version of a pool shark? Because that's what this guy was. He just totally saw you coming and rolled you. Then I, yeah, he was ready to put money on the line and everything. He was going to take your lunch.
that certainly wasn't going to happen with me. All right, so we're down to our last 10 minutes, and you had asked me the question of like, what kind of factions and stuff do I feel like need to be prepared? If you're going to start a new game, what kind of factions do you feel need to be there in your games?
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on what happens in your session 0, right? So, I mean, I can just look at Under the Dome and grab examples from that. There were several things that happened in our session 0 that I wasn't anticipating. I'm like, here's the world, right? And you guys were like, well, what about street racing? We feel like street racing should definitely be a part of this, and we want to do street racing. So, boom, right there, you just created like 5 factions, right, or more, because now you have these other street racing gangs, and some of them, some of them were legit, and some of them are what we consider outlaw, right? So the outlaw are actually just criminals, but they also street race. So that came out of session 0. And then originally there was not a gladiatorial arena in my game, in my campaign setting, but several of the players wanted to be gladiators or ex-gladiators. So I was like, okay, now there's ex-gladiators. So and one of them's like, yeah, and I came from a gladiator school. So I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. What if they all came from gladiator schools? And so like 2 of them made up 2 different ones, and then which is like, well, if it can't just be these 2 schools that fight all the time, there's got to be some other ones, right? So we made, so I made up a couple of other gladiator schools, and these are all like the prominent schools, and then of course the grind barons, which rule the city, they each had their own schools as well that fall under their banner, for prestige. So like right there and then you're like, hey, I want to be something kind of weird, and I was experimenting on, and then like I kind of like experimenting on myself a little bit. I want to do something like that, and then you also introduced, one, a villain, your nemesis, who basically did bad things to you, and then someone else that basically also helped you do the same things, but
Right.
it wasn't bad this time. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, that's how the Flesh Warpers kind of came about, and why there's this religion based on that, and also like we have living constructs in our game, and we just basically, it's just a way to throw Warforged in, and one of the things that'll happen for the Warforged is like they'll just be inspired to build another Warforged, and it'll just come alive. Now, that's not how you make a Warforged. It's just a specific instance where it happens, and it's a unique thing, and no one knows why it happens that way. Well, because there are other body modders that like doing it through inorganic things, like construct parts, like they're kind of like bad guys, because, or at least amongst them there are bad guys, because there are rumors that they kind of snatch Warforged off the streets so they can dissect them and use their parts, right? So like the right there, like I don't know, I think I just listed like probably a dozen organizations or factions within the Under the Dome campaign, and there's a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's at least 6 schools. There was at least 8 houses. I mean, so that's 14 right there, plus the 2 body modders. So now we're up to 16. Um, and we know that there's other things that are going on besides that, because Vex, the guy that I created, he himself, is really its own faction because of his allies and underlings, and the things he's created. But I had wanted to use the Simic hybrid as my race. And it's like, oh, you start off as one thing and you're changed into something else. Because I felt that mirrored kind of perfectly with the elemental mutation sorcerer, which is one of our Nerdarchy created subclasses. Because I like to try and play the things that we've made, so I can, you know, oh, do some extra play testing and really feel out, where these things are, and to occasionally be able to talk about them and all the fun things that we've made. um so it was like, all right, I'm going to do this. So there's a lot of experimental aspects to my character. So I was like, all right, well, how do I play that up? What kind of story goes along with it? Because we were starting at, a higher level. I think we started at fifth. Um, we did session 19 last night. So, I don't know exactly how much longer this story is going to go, but Dave is looking to wrap this up, and then he's going to pass on the mantle to one of our other players and thrust a new DM into the seat at our table. And there's talk of running an all dwarven cleric game. So I'm kind of intrigued by that one.
We'll see how that goes. So yeah, and I would suggest, like, if you're doing session zeros, part of it should be building out some factions. Maybe just the stuff the players come up with lends itself to creating factions in your world. And also, like, when you do that, that makes your players a lot more vested in the game and these organizations. If they had a hand in creating them, they become a lot more significant to them. And also, as a DM, like, why not let them do some of the heavy lifting? Why not let them add some creativity to the world and come up with some ideas? It doesn't have to just be you, the dungeon master, creating everything. Sure, it can be fun to do some of that, but why not? You know, why not spread it around a little bit and let everyone take part, and it increase the investment in the game for your players.
Because that's it exactly. If you allow them to create something, then whatever happens to that something, they're going to care more about it. The fighting school that was run by Master Dyson. The character who created that one has been heavily invested in the fate of that particular school, and we've done a lot of quests and a lot of things to save that character's life, do an investigation, and you know you know go through all of these things because it matters. The character, the bad guy that I created, I'm pretty sure Dave's expectation when this evil wizard experimenter showed up the first time, I think Dave thought that this was going to be a throwaway fight. We were going to kill him, and that was going to be the end of it. Um, but my character was like literally terrified of, like, I never thought I was going to see you again. Holy crap! What are you doing here? Go away! And it wound up taking this character from potentially a single combat to, well, now he's going to be a villain. And then because things unfolded and things got stretched out, like, now he's being moved into like the BBEG, and is now going to be like, all right, well, when we kill this guy, that's when we'll retire these characters for now and move on to another story. And I love that aspect, all because Ted decided, no, I'm no, I don't think we should fight this guy. I'm my character's scared, and you make these shifts, and I think giving the players that kind of agency to change the world based on their actions and reactions is something that, like, it can exist in a board game. Like, it takes the reactive and the responses of a DM to say, okay, I can handle this change. Let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, just remember, it's everybody's story at the table. So let the players have their part in it. and I think it just enhances things. But we are at the 9 o'clock hour. Check out that promo code down in the description. Check out the Kickstarter. If you can't back it, do us a favor, share it out. Maybe one of your friends will be interested. And with that, until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.